Do you do it to the cloud or to the computer?
Take it away.
Alex, thank you
Yeah.
for joining us in this chat. And we're going to talk about how you took a startup from 0 to 1. I want to tell everybody I have this great description of him. I pulled it from their website. Alex is the rare combination of founder, engineer, and early stage go-to-market expert. Before becoming a venture capitalist, he was founder, CEO of StormPath, where he built an authentication API service for developers and grew a bottoms-up model that attracted thousands of developers every week. When StormPath was acquired by Okta in 2017, he became, is it Okta?
Okta, it's Okta.
Yeah. He became that company's VP GM of new products. In that job, he introduced a new IT product and scaled it from 0 to 9 million in sales in less than a year. Alex has a BS in computer science from Georgia Tech and an MBA from Stanford Graduate School of Business. So Alex, thank you so much for talking to us and for being here with us all day. Your first idea for a startup was to create some kind of big data product in the cloud. What happened with that?
Yeah, so I was at Stanford Business School, and when you're in business school, you think you know everything. One of the things that I really believed at the time was that cloud was going to be a big deal. At the time, that was actually a controversial statement. Now it's obvious. But so I had decided that I was going to go take one of the markets that had worked really well in traditional client server, which was like, things like Cognos. And I was just going to go transfer that directly to the cloud, and it was going to, be a huge hit, and I was going to make $1 billion. I went out and started to talk to customers and ask them if they would buy it, if they would use it, how much would they would pay, and really started to validate the market. And in doing that, which was a fairly long process, it was probably about 6 months worth of work. We learned that the market wasn't there. Customers, and very, very specifically, customers all wanted to buy it, but nobody knew what they were going to do with it, which meant there was going to be less of a product business and more of a consulting business, which doesn't scale well. And so we killed the idea. But because the process we'd taken had been so customer forward, we talked to probably about 50 companies to get to that decision. We actually had a really robust network that we went back to after we killed it and just basically posed a question of like, hey guys, when you move to the cloud, what's breaking? And we got a really long list. Some of those markets were already fairly well funded, and so not a good opportunity for a new company, but one of them wasn't. And that was ultimately the problem statement of, I've got all these custom applications. They're used to authenticating against Active Directory. Now that I'm in the cloud, I need to go custom build my own authentication service. That sucks. I don't want to do it. And so we thought that was fairly unique, and then started that company instead. Took the same approach, talked to probably close to like 60 or 70 organizations about that specific problem. Most of them told us we were crazy, but about 10% said, yeah, if you build that, I'll buy it. And so on the back of that, we raised venture capital and started the company. And then I think that customer forward conversation really was hugely beneficial, because it helped us do a number of other smaller micro pivots to get us to a product that about a year and a half later, kind of clicked and started to J-curve, which was great. And then we ultimately got acquired by Okta to go be their customer identity product, which I think today is 25% of their annual bookings.
So two of the key things you're talking about, it seems to me, are this customer discovery process, but it was also you, because you only had 10% certainty that it was an idea that would work, right?
Yeah, I think there's a few elements to it that I think are critical. I think the most important one is that you got to start with some insight, right? It's really hard to be a generalist and go through this process. Like, there has to be, a guiding thesis or a guiding insight that someone's working with. And I think, at least for the community that of the tech transfer teams, I think that insight is actually already built in. There's typically a research team that has had this breakthrough insight that they can at least start with. The second piece is the obvious piece, which is you have to talk to the market, because no one really cares about the technology. The technology is really important, but like what really matters is the technology fits a market that it can sell into.
Well, that's one of the challenges for the tech transfer people, right? Because they've got a lot of researchers who are thinking about the technology, right? So what would your advice to them be? You know, if they want to get the kind of companies you formed in their backyard, how should they do it? How should they go about it?
I mean, the most important, you need that insight. It's hard to do without the insight. Someone from that research team needs to, put on a customer discovery hat on and go dedicate a significant amount of time to go see if the market cares. And without that work, it's hard to get off the ground. But more importantly, at least we see this in the Valley where there's too much venture capital money flowing around. Even you might still get funded without that work, but getting funded without that work is actually worse than not getting funded, because then you create a zombie company where this tech team ends up spending 3 or 4 to 5 years of their life on something that's just not going to go anywhere. And that's incredibly stressful and a waste of their life.
Does it have to be someone from the research team, or can it be someone from the tech transfer office who does that customer discovery?
I mean, I think it depends on how deep the insight is. I would argue it needs to be someone from the from the research team, because there's going to be a moment very early in a conversation where someone's going to be interested enough in what they're doing where they're just going to start asking a bunch of questions. And if you don't have a principal researcher, they're not going to be able to answer those questions. And then you might miss out on that unexpected insight that might come from that conversation. Mm-hmm. More importantly, there's going to be a level of indirection of the feedback, because the feedback you're getting back from the community is just as important as simply seeing if they care. And so if tech transfers in the middle, then you're getting a filter on that data. And so it's going to be harder for anyone to iterate.
Got it. So you've told us you want to extend your network in the Great Lakes region. You want to meet some of the people on the campuses. You're obviously doing that today. What kinds of things are you looking for when you talk to people here?
Yeah, I mean, I think a really common conversation we've been having today is, they really end up, in particular in the healthcare space, and then I can broaden beyond healthcare. But, the first thing is there needs to be someone from the tech team that's going to commit to being an entrepreneur. At least speaking as a venture capitalist, it's impossible to just take a tech, license it, and then create a company around it without someone from the tech team leading it. It just doesn't work. And the biggest reason, and at least for most of the tech, I mean, maybe in pharma, it might be different, but the problem is that in the really early stages where there's barely a company there, the bet is equal parts technology and market as it is the actual entrepreneur. Because someone's got to be able to navigate and thread the needle, and it won't be us. And so we look for things that have someone attached to it. The second piece is, in particular in healthcare, it needs to have a lower FDA risk. For the majority of venture capital models, a protracted, very expensive, FDA approval process that might take the better part of a decade and $100 million of investment doesn't really work that well. Most venture capital ends up really needing to look for things that are going to be capital efficient.
So you're saying VCs don't want to cure cancer?
Well, it depends. It's more that there's a category of VCs that have the bankroll to afford to cure cancer, but they end up being very specialized VCs. More general VCs like us, we need to be able to get into market with single-digit $1 million investments. Now, FDA approval is reasonable. Like some things can do it. I mean, we have a very healthy computational biology practice that some of it does require FDA approval, but it's something that's affordable and with a relatively short time frame.
Got it. We're bumping up against the time we have to start moving people, so I want to just warn everybody. But real quick, could you tell us how big your fund is and what size checks you like to write?
Yeah, so we are a Silicon Valley venture firm. Our most recent fund, Fund 2, is a $216 million fund. We basically, our specialty is to be the first institutional check into a company, and we'll invest relatively early if the technology is breakthrough enough. Our check sizes are typically between $2 and $6 million. And then the place where we add value in addition to the capital is that we're all founders ourselves. And so we take a very heavy hand in training the researcher in this case to be a CEO, and then helping them get their first 5 customers if that's a relevant milestone for the next round of financing.
That's great. I want to let everyone know, because I'm sure some of these meetings are getting cut off. We are going to send a list with connections for everybody, so you will be able to connect with everyone you've met today. So I'm sure you'll get a few of those, Alex. Thank you so much for explaining to us your journey and what you guys are looking for. We are going to start moving people now.
Awesome. Pleasure to meet everybody.